Did you record?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
All right.
Douche Omar. That douche Omar. Welcome to the Targeted Podcast. I am Saheed. That is Nicholas. What is up, everyone? Nicholas, say hello.
What's going on, man?
Yeah. I just realized there were
2 episodes in a row.
2 episodes in a row.
Getting it back on.
And your voice is delayed.
What?
Your voice is delayed. You say
Oh.
something and you're like, and then like the words come out. You know what? Whatever. We've had audio problems before. We're gonna power through with this.
It's always
One thing I
something,
wanted to
man.
point out too was that we should be. Oh, I don't think we are. Damn it! I was hoping that we'd be live on Instagram, but we are not right now. So we need to fix that.
We'll get it going.
Yeah, we'll have to figure it out later. You might have to stop and start again.
Yeah, you know what, man? I'm gonna sign off and sign back in because we were just fine before you started the actual stream. I don't know what happened. This is weird.
Streaming's hard.
All right.
All right. Sorry, I was
Alright.
trying to set us
Alright.
back up for Instagram.
It's still slightly delayed, but whatever. Keep it moving.
Yeah, we're nothing new. Nicholas audio problems.
Right.
What's new?
Anyways,
That's cool. Well, welcome to Targeted Podcast. I am Saheed. That is Nicholas. And for some reason, the Instagram stuff isn't working, so I need to fix that out.
nothing but
Little
technical
later.
problems.
Technical problems. Well, admittedly, I forgot about it until like 5 minutes before, and I was like, "Oh shit, I wanted to connect to Instagram." So I thought we had connections there, but I guess it's not working. So I think I probably did the setup wrong. But it is what it is. Let's start off. How are you doing, man? How's life treating you?
Let's see. I tried to go to bed early last night, and son woke me up at 4 something, and never went back to sleep. So I'm tired.
Whose fault is having kids? You're not selling having kids at all.
I mean, nobody's gonna sell it until the kids aren't babies anymore. To be honest with you,
Fair enough. Maybe
the
that's what
girls
else
are
you do. I
great.
should probably. Is there like a fast forward option if you have kids and you can just fast forward to like when they're 18? You can do that.
Well, I wouldn't want to fast forward till they're 18. My God, that means you're a senior citizen at that point. You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. By the way, you got to meet up with our boy Omar. So
I did.
over the weekend. I legit didn't feel like going. Hate to admit that. Well, I don't hate to admit that. It's like we
Let's be
voted
honest,
on.
man. If it's not in your little neighborhood, you're not going. Let's be honest.
It makes
You're
it
not going.
tougher. No, but we voted on what did we vote on? We voted on bowling. We voted to go bowling, and then Nicholas here changes everyone's mind to go to Topgolf, and then changed his mind again last second. It's like, oh, I don't think I can make Topgolf. I'm like,
Well, I have influence. I can't help that,
I don't
right?
think I can make a Topgolf. And then we ended all going to one Fusion, and I'm like, you know what? You guys have fun.
Man, you've been to Fusion 1,000 times. I think
Yeah,
you could have
no,
gone.
I,
But
I, I
no,
had a long week.
it
I
was a
was
good
tired.
turnout, man. It was like about
It
15
was.
people probably, and got to chat it up with Omar. He's still doing well, everyone.
Yeah, that's
He's still on
good.
the podcast. He's more than the logo, right? So
He's more than the logo. Is that what you're saying? We need to remove him from the logo. Is what we need to do.
But yeah, I'm gonna have to take him off the center position. I think.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm telling you, we need a new podcast name. Two Black Guys. It's gonna happen. Two Black Guys.
I
Okay.
mean, it's not bad.
Okay. I'm sure there's another podcast called Two Black Guys, but yeah, that's fine. Let's go ahead and get into it. So we got a couple of things that we're going to talk about this week. We're going to talk about it's been the 1 year anniversary of the war in Ukraine. So we're going to mention that just a little bit. Yeah, it's been a year, right? And we're obviously going to be talking about Black History Month. You got some topics you want to discuss? A couple things I'm going to discuss a little bit as well. So let's go ahead and get into it, right? Let's waste no more time. War in Ukraine. It's been Can you believe it's been a year?
No.
We've been in this weird space with time ever since COVID started, right? Where
Yep.
time is long yet short at the same time. Like you can't almost believe that it's been 3 years since like the lockdowns almost, right? Lockdowns of 2020, right?
Yeah.
So same thing with here, like war in Ukraine. And one of our colleagues, he actually made a mention this in one of our chats, saying that he can't believe that we're sending like billions of dollars to Ukraine while people are still suffering here, right? As you know, inflation is moving up. The economy isn't great. It isn't terrible, but it isn't great, right? For a lot of people. And I thought that was a pretty interesting statement that he said. And it made me think a little bit. It says, yeah, you're right. But at the same time, even if we stop sending like aid to Ukraine, it's not like they're going to take that money and start helping American citizens either, right? Like that's already been discussed to military spending to kind of try to screw over Vladimir Putin. And let's say if we stop supporting Ukraine, what happens? We only benefit Putin, who tried to upend our elections a couple years ago, right? So it's kind of one of those. The question was asked, like, should we in our group chat, like, should we support like Ukraine? I mean, you had the same answer. It's like, yeah, begrudgingly, yes, right?
Yeah.
Because we know what the United States is trying to do. They're testing to see if they're ready for a modern war, right? Which they decided they're not. By the way, they realized that they're not because Russia's just shooting up a lot of like ammunition, a lot of like just a lot of shots, non-smart weapons, and you need weapons to counter that, right?
Right.
And they don't have enough ammunition, enough firepower to kind of counter that, or they're running out of like firepower really quickly. I think apparently I heard like 20,000 shells are being fired a day, I think. And yeah, they're struggling to kind of keep up with production now. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that. It's been a year. Not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this, but yeah, what are your thoughts on Ukraine?
I'm just wondering when it's gonna stop. I think I said before, like I feel like this is gonna be Russia's Vietnam, right? Because we were supposed to, back in the Vietnam War, we were supposed to go over there and just like wipe them dudes out. We had the technology, we
Oh
had
yeah,
the manpower, we had everything, and we went over there and we're introduced to their style of guerrilla warfare, right?
yeah,
Which was very hard to counter. It didn't matter what kind of weapons we had. We couldn't get a decisive victory. We ended up having to pull out. So
yep,
I'm wondering how long it's going to take Russia to realize the same thing, right? Um,
yeah.
I know that.
Well,
I think on their side, I think they feel like they're essentially like reclaiming lands that were already theirs at one point anyway.
hmm
But I mean, at some point, man, I mean, you read the articles about morale and things of that nature of the Russian soldiers.
Hmm.
So I'm just wondering when they're going to pull out. The other interesting thing I read about was China. Was about China, right? Evidently, they've struck up a better relationship, or they've improved their relationship with Russia during this time.
Really?
So, I've seen articles here and there about whether or not, they're basically pondering whether or not China is going to give Russia some aid in the war.
Yeah. Well, they
And
have been already. They have giving them some aid because Russia has been cut off economically by the rest of the world.
mhm,
How much aid though? I don't know. Like, I don't think they're obviously not helping them militarily. They have they're a very frenemy type of relationship, right? Because they're not super cool with each other, but they both dislike United States.
yeah,
So it's like, okay, I guess
yeah.
we're cool. But yeah, I'm sorry I cut you off. Go ahead, continue though.
No, that's all good. But I'm just wondering, because I think Biden already came out and said like if China directly aids Russia, I mean it's really gonna be an
Yeah,
issue. So I have some fears about that. I mean, obviously, I'm just wondering at some point, man. I mean, I'm just wondering like when Pride is gonna when it's gonna you know not
yeah,
when they're gonna like finally realize like I'm not sure that this is worth it. Like, are you fighting for your own pride now, or are you just
yeah.
or is there really like do you really have a strategy to win this war? Because I'm not really
No,
seeing it.
that's a great point. Like at some point, when do they get tired of fighting? Is the question, right?
Yeah,
Um, and all this for like a handful of guys' ego, for example.
yeah.
Like it's just Putin wants the Soviet bloc to come back, right? I also read an article that they planned on taking over or annexing Belarus already. That's already
Hmm.
a puppet state essentially to Russia, and they're thinking about just annexing it anyway. Um, and it's nuts. It's very scary because a lot of these world wars are started by, oh, that's our land. They're ethnically us. They belong to us, right?
Oh yeah.
So we bring them back to the fold, right? That's how Germany started World War II. That's how World War One essentially started with like the an assassination of like Archduke Ferdinand, I believe is his name.
Yep.
And I think it was like some empire was trying to kind of reclaim lands, and that's kind of what started again. So I this is scary, but I think we may be heading towards World War III, right? You see with
Scary to
Russia and
think about, man.
Ukraine, yeah. You see China with Taiwan, right? A couple months
Hmm.
ago, Nancy Pelosi flew to Taiwan to show their support. This pissed the fuck off out of China, right? And they started using military drills. They sent a spy balloon, which was painfully obvious to everyone that.
So let's talk about that. I wanted to talk about that too. Right. Great segue. So
Yeah,
um, first you hear about the first balloon.
yeah,
And it seemed to be like a bunch of shuffling, like what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And then we come out and shoot it down. Then shortly after that, it's like we shoot down like a couple other balloons.
yeah.
So it's like, and then you see China's reaction, right? It's like, oh, how dare you? But what do you expect? If you're flying like that type of stuff over someone else's land, like what do you? I mean, honestly, like what do you expect? I
Yeah.
don't really understand how they could be in their feelings about us shooting down a spy balloon.
Well, I mean, I
At the
think
end of the
their
day, we're all
reaction.
spying on each other anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
You just got caught.
They're just doing a bad job at it. They got
That's
caught, essentially.
they're all doing it. I mean,
Apparently, there were three Chinese balloons during Trump's administration that no one ever said anything to. Um, Also, in relation to the other things that were shot down, that there wasn't China, they think it's just kind of commercial aircraft or commercial balloons because more people are shooting shit up into space now, right? That's
yeah,
a normal thing, right? We see the bigger private firms like Elon Musk's, not Starlink, but SpaceX. Um, he has stuff. Blue Origin or Horizon, I think, is Amazon's thing. Jeff Bezos' thing. So more and more private people are just shooting shit up into space, and I think we're just finally start looking at it now, and I think it became a little bit more hyper focused on since the
Yeah.
very obvious Chinese balloon floated above us. Think about like the idiocy of like some of members of Congress like, why didn't you shoot it down immediately? And I'm like, well, because they're people on the ground, right? It's like, no, you should have shut it down. You should have shot it down. It's like,
What
when
if the
is
thing held like some sort of poison gas or some shit?
yeah,
You don't
like
know.
what
You
or
don't
what if
know.
it falls on somebody, right? Like it's so stupid, and it's just like this is what happens when like the tough guy act goes too far, right? It's like I need to be a
Yeah.
tough guy, watch me shoot this missile down, and you just hurt innocent bystanders for like just to show how tough you are, right? It's silly, but yeah, it's scary, right? It sounds like we could really be in the next 5 to 10 years. We could really be headed in a world war, right? China wants Taiwan back. Taiwan, by the way, one of the world's largest producer of chips, right? Microchips.
Oh, computer chips.
Yeah, computer chips. So
Mm.
yeah, that's a big reason why China or why United States doesn't want China interrupting with that because they get a lot of the computer chips from Taiwan that powers our computers, our cell phones, our military software.
Everything.
Um, yeah, starts with that, right? I think Biden announced recently that he was going to start chip manufacturing in, I think, Arizona, so we're less reliant on Taiwan. But that's the geopolitical part of where we are, right? Where we're trying to we're just trying to screw each other over, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too. I mean, as much as we talk about World War III, it seems like the new warfare is really just like this economic warfare, right? Like
It
how
is,
I can impact your country's economy, make your people
yeah,
suffer, and have the people basically do the work for me, right? Overthrowing the
yeah,
government. So I know there's always a threat of it out there because I mean we all have these crazy huge nuclear arsenals where like if they go off, I mean it's over for everyone, right? So
absolutely.
there's still a fear of it. I don't even want to see what modern warfare looks like as much as I like playing the game. I don't want to see. I would hate to see like what it actually looks like. The only thing I can
Yeah,
think of is that it's more focused, and at this point it would probably require like much fewer troops than it used
yeah,
to in the past. Like I look at this war right here, like with Ukraine, it seemed like Russia required like a lot of manpower. And again, like I'm no general, I'm no military strategist, never been in the military
yeah,
in my life, right? But
mhm,
it seemed like you know, from their side, and just watching the war, it seemed like it required a lot of manpower from both sides, and it might be because they don't have the technological advancements in some other countries. But when you think
mhm,
about like the U.S. Having military operations around the world, you usually just hear about us using a lot of airstrikes,
yeah,
and might be like a focused. It seems like it's like a focused attack, like in one or two places, to try to for whatever purpose or whatever. And it seems different than this war here. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I mean, what makes this war scary is that Putin is like the Russian version of Donald Trump almost.
Don't do
Um,
that.
he kind of is. Look, dude, all these dictators are all buddy buddy with each other. Have you realized that? Like Trump can't help but compliment Vladimir Putin
Well, I
because
mean, he
he,
had to. He helped get him elected. I mean, we all know he
well,
played around in the election.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
absolutely. Well,
and
there's that,
influenced the
and it's
election.
like he wants what Vladimir Putin has, where he has such a iron grip on Russia. Like even though he's like effing up the war now, he's not going to be removed unless
Yeah,
somebody like forcibly removes him or he decides to remove himself, and that's what Trump wanted, right?
yeah,
To say, oh yeah, I won the election, or what doesn't matter, I win, and that's kind of how it is. So yeah, it's scary because Vladimir Putin, they have nukes, right? And the fallout that can hurt everybody, right?
yes,
So we're at this very delicate like cat and mouse game where the United States is very openly aiding Ukraine, um, but they don't want to directly get involved because that will piss off Russia enough where they could use their nukes, and the United States will use their nukes, and then we're
Yeah.
all the nuclear winter there, which sucks. They did talk about. So I watched a show called The Infographic Show. I actually posted it in our description. It's on like Instagram, so they do a lot of following like the war, and they're sending a lot of tanks now. So they're going to be United States are sending their M1 Abrams tanks, which is apparently like the best tank in the world. Germany's sending their tanks, the Leopard 2, which is one of the best tanks in the world, right? England's sending their tanks, so it's going to be pretty interesting moving forward. As I was saying, people are running out of artillery for
Yeah.
sure. Artillery is running low. It's because Russia's just shooting off so many of them, and they don't even care what they hit. They're hitting like residential buildings, energy infrastructure, all that shit, right?
Yeah,
So
man.
yeah, it makes you wonder how this is gonna stop, or if it's gonna stop, or what it takes to have to stop, right? Right now, there's still high support of the war in Russia, right? Even though there's been a lot of defectors and a lot of people showing showing that they don't have support for the war, there's still a net positive in terms of support for the war in the war in Ukraine, or the special military operations, what they're calling it, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I literally just think of it as a bunch of like Vladimir Putin's Trump, and the people are blindly just following little Trump supporters, like just believing whatever lie is said, right? Um, like the guy, like Vladimir Putin, literally said, like we're going to war to denazify Ukraine, which is sad because Zelensky, Prime Minister of Ukraine, his parents were Holocaust survivors. So how does that work? But yeah, we can go on and on about that.
Yeah, you definitely could, man. I
We
just,
definitely do.
I just, say a prayer for the people over there, man. Like, I really hope that this war comes to an end soon because it just, to me, from my perspective, I mean, it just seems like a waste at this point. Like, you're not winning, and it just doesn't. I'm not really sure what you're fighting for anymore.
Yeah, I don't think they know what they're fighting for either.
It's like now
Sadly.
they're just fighting to make a point, right? It's like,
Yeah. Well,
but you're not really making a point.
you made this the state like uh United States when we're fighting the war in Vietnam, right? They're just there so they won't lose, right?
Yeah,
There's a great it was a great movie. I think it's called The Post, right? And it talks about the Pentagon Papers, right? So the Pentagon Papers, I'm not sure if you know about this.
I don't.
Um, yeah, so the Pentagon Papers were so the U.S. military did a research on like the possibility of what will it take to win, or can we win in Vietnam, and they did this research to figure out if that was possible, and they came up with the conclusion that yeah, we can't win, right?
Wow.
Like, we'll have to go through way out of our way to win. The war is not going well, right? We're not winning this thing. We need to like get out like now. But each president kept committing to the war, right? Because they didn't want to be the one to pull out, to say, "Oh, we lost," to like we lose, right?
Yeah.
And that's happened for decades. This is from JFK, Lyndon Johnson, right? Eisenhower, right? All those presidents who were in power um, were like, no, definitely watch The Post. Great movie, by the way. Saying,
I have to
oh, we
check that
shouldn't.
out.
Yeah, we need to. We're going to win this war. They don't want to be the one that say we lost the war, right? And
Yeah.
think about how many people have lost their lives just because of that vanity, just because of
Exactly.
kind of being in vain, right? And that's kind of what's happening um, with Ukraine right now. How many Russian soldiers have died? Right, over 100,000 apparently by some estimates. Right, just stupid amount. And we haven't even talked about the refugees, Ukrainian civilians, everyone else who's passed away. Right,
Hmm.
so um, it's just crazy, crazy, just crazy numbers, and it just shows kind of a lot of these wars are literally caused by like a handful of people and their egos, right?
Oh, of course.
Um,
Yeah.
handful of people and their egos. That's the unfortunate thing. One other thing I wanted to say too, it also shows, like from an American perspective, right? We went to a war in Iraq for like literally no reason. For trumped up charges saying that he had like weapons of mass destruction. So when you see this happening with Ukraine, it shows how impressionable some people can be, right? If American
Mm.
can do it, then fuck it, we can do it too, and that's kind of what you're seeing, right? So it's important that we have like a competent president and leader to not start some shit, because you never know, 20, 30 years from now, someone else will be like, oh, America did this 30 years ago. We can do it too. And more people have to die.
Facts.
Yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Cool. Let's hit some Black history.
Yeah.
The two, I do. Let me play one video. This is the first Black emperor. The first, so the first Roman emperor that was not Italian, right? And the first Black emperor. So I wanted to play a quick video. Hopefully this works fine.
Who actually ever came to Britain was the African emperor Septimius Severus.
Hold on. Let's just stop there.
Okay.
Are you telling me there was an African emperor?
There was an African emperor, and he was one of the greatest Roman emperors. So he was born in North Africa.
Yeah.
In AD 145, and he died here.
Here?
Right beneath your feet.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So
In York?
In York. This is where he would have lived. His bedroom would have been within 10 yards of where we're sitting, below us. Actually, I can show you what the family looked like.
Really?
Because we have a portrait here called the Severan Tonda. This is like a photograph
Oh my goodness.
of the Severan family. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
There they are.
Wow. It's amazing to actually see his portrait. It's a black man, isn't it? I always remember the Romans being quite violent when I was at school. Was Severus nasty?
He was a warrior. He came here to Britain in AD 208. He got a message from the governor, and the governor said that we here in Britain are being attacked from the north and we're in danger of being overrun. The first thing he does is have them build the walls of Roman London.
Wow.
So the city of London, to this day, the square mile is defined by the African Emperor Septimius Severus. If you walk into the reception area of the British Museum, the first bust you see is a bust of Septimius Severus, alabaster white, but actually when it was in real life in the Roman world, it would have been painted as he was, a man from North Africa, a black man.
So no one would know that that was not a white man?
Absolutely right. This is a man who's there all the time. He's right in front of us all the time in the British Museum, but nobody knows unless you dig into the story that he was a warrior emperor from North Africa who stayed true to his own heritage.
This is just incredible. I can't believe
This. I give you...
Wow! It looks so real, doesn't it? That looks so real.
If you look at his eyes, it's like looking into the eyes of a real person.
This African emperor has just completely blown my mind. It's completely changed. I had known this as a child.
The Roman Empire is a truly cosmopolitan mixing pot of people from all over the Roman Empire.
That's crazy, huh?
Dude, I think you have the Black History fact of like the year. I had no idea about any of this, bro. Yo, big up. I mean, I've been making shorts on the channel. Well, I'm just going to, yeah, we're just going to make it short about that, man. I'm amazed. I just Googled his name like right now. I gotta like read up on this dude.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's crazy how we haven't learned about this in school. And mind you, I've taken Roman in college. It took a Roman history class as well. This guy never came up, not once.
Look, I'll tell you,
Right?
I studied Latin for like 4 years, right? And in the class, they I mean, obviously, like, learn, it's a dead language, but you still learn like the basics of the language. But then you learn like a lot of the history. No mention of this dude at all,
No.
at all, right? And I feel like in this, I feel like this is a great segue for me to say this, but like this is the reason why those AP African American history classes are so important,
Yeah,
because you
they're
could have
probably not even
things
good
like this in
enough.
here where it's like, hey, yes, we're going to
Yeah,
talk about the history of the people here, but hey, this could be something that you bring out, because otherwise you're never going to get it.
yeah. What's interesting too is, and this, they mentioned in the video as well, that area, right? So Rome, Greece, Spain, the area that's kind of known for the Renaissance, right? A lot of people have looked at the Renaissance and they see a lot of whiteness
Yes.
involved, right? And that's just based off the looks in the statues, right? But what they don't realize is that the color has just come off over the years, and that those statues were people of color. Like, there are lots of different colors, not just white, but different shades, and that makes perfect sense provided the region is in, right? It's just a quick boat ride from Morocco to Italy or to Spain, right?
Yep.
And it's crazy how people just don't realize it. It's amazing how that's been blocked out of our history. So every time someone, when we talk about race and slavery, and how it's like, well, why do you guys be offended when we talk about slavery? Other cultures had slavery, but yeah, in America, we made it about race. There was a point, I forgot the guy's name too. There was a Portuguese um, traveler um, who made slavery into a race thing, or a specific race thing, right? Um, and that's how they separated European indenture servers from slaves, right? They made it about race, right?
Yep.
And the whole Confederacy, the whole reason for the Confederacy, when Abraham Lincoln got elected, was like, oh, we're seceding because the black man needs to be lower than the white man. They literally said it in their papers, right? They
Hmm.
made it about race, and you see that. Um, I'm big. I don't like listening to conspiracy theories at all. Um,
But
I don't. I'm anti-conspiracy theorist. But when you hear things like, so one big conspiracy theory is that Africans discovered America before Columbus, right? That's a huge conspiracy theory. That's kind of being popularized right now. Um, Mind you, Columbus didn't discover America. He accidentally discovered, the West Indies.
he landed
We'll get,
in somebody else's land. That's what he did.
yeah, you don't
Let's
discover
just
something
say.
that's where people was already there. But we'll talk about that on Indigenous Peoples Day. But like, when you see what's happening now, right? People are actively trying to erase Black history. Oh, we talk about Sativarius here, the first Black emperor. Never heard of him, right? Uh, it kind of starts making you wonder about some of these conspiracies now, right?
It does.
Where, um, yeah, people, there is a concerted effort to erase Black history, right? And the impact it's had on the world. And we're seeing this today. We saw this back then, right? We're seeing this all around, and it's just really, really unfortunate. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
thoughts.
man. I mean, I gotta look this guy up. But you know what? It also reminds me of is
Yeah.
you remember? You might not think about it much, but I still think about it all the time. It was this. It was Halloween, and we were sitting at lunch with a bunch of other people, and we were talking about, yeah, we were talking about our plans or whatever, And you say, yeah, I think I'm going to be a pharaoh this year. And one of our coworkers said,
Oh,
oh, you might want to find some makeup. And that
yeah, I
like
remember this.
that still pisses me off to this day,
I
right?
remember this.
Because he was trying to imply that only pharaohs were only light skinned,
Yeah.
right? So again, what we teach in school is so important, because there's there's this thing that happens where you know, and I was reading an article about it. Like, some kids went to um, the King Tut exhibit, and it was like Egypt was made to seem like it was not a part of Africa,
Yeah.
right? And if you ask, and people don't readily equate the two, or relate the two, right? That yes, Egypt is in fact in Africa, right?
Yeah.
So yes, ladies and gentlemen, there were dark-skinned pharaohs. There were a lot of
Yeah.
dark. I mean, Egyptians were all colors, but there were definitely some dark-skinned people out there. I mean, and,
Yeah.
and one of the websites I was reading was basically saying that, you know, because they did a study on it, and they were basically saying it wasn't until about like 200 years ago where there started to be some question about the skin color of the pharaohs and some people in Egypt.
Yeah.
Like if you go back to the actual writings of some of the Greeks or some of the people who visited there, they'd be like, yeah, they were dark skinned and had woolly hair. That's
Yeah.
I mean, that's African people to a T, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy, man. And you really
Yeah.
just have to. But and the sad part is that instead of being able to like send your child to school and have them learn these things or just learn about just like a general history, where instead it's more focused on European perspectives,
Yep.
or you don't really get too far. The African piece is kind of skipped over, and most other cultures are skipped over too. I mean, I definitely didn't learn too much about Asian history outside of Genghis Khan. You know what I mean? So
Definitely hear you on that one. Yeah.
we just gotta do better, man. I'm hoping
Yeah,
that
we
we
do.
find a way to get these
Um,
classes in here. And I still
we-
and I still think reading the 1619 project should be something that everyone does. I thought it was a great read. Great read. Boom. Great read.
I actually have not read this yet, and I need to read it. I'm behind in my books, but I'm always behind in reading. But this is something that I really want to get into.
It's an eye opener, man. I read it before they made it a book. It was like they published all the articles and everything
Yeah.
online, all the essays and everything. I read it all, man. It was a great read.
Yeah. Perception matters to the point that you were making earlier, right? It's important that, for starters, people we see ourselves, right? When you speak to a black youth and ask them what they want to be when they grow up, they will possibly say athlete, right? Because that's what they see, right? You don't see as much in doctors or presidents or senators or any of the other stuff, right?
Right.
So perception matters, and I think people know that instinctively, and they hide Black history, right? Again, like a Black Roman emperor, like what?
Mind blown.
Mine. When I first saw that, I'm like, shut the fuck up. What? Right? But again, perception matters, right? Perception matters, and I think they know this, and I think there is a movement out there to ensure that Black people are seen less of, right? Even among some of liberal America too, as well, right? They will sit there and they'll virtue signal, but when it matters most, right? Remember New York, Central Park Karen, right? When Black guy asked her, "Hey, put a leash on your dog," she remembered, "I'm white, you're black.
Oh yeah.
Watch yourself." Right? And I told you, I won't go through it again, but I think I told you my little spat with that in last week's episode as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some other things I wanted to play, but I know you had something you want to say about Black History Month as well, like different perspective.
Oh yeah. And just for anybody questioning where I'm getting my sources out of these studies or whatever, it just comes from an article on NPR.com. All right, and there's several different universities in there. Temple University was part of the study, and let me see what the other one was. A guy from Penn State. So,
Man, I wish you told me this. I would have put it in our description. Like,
I always go back and edit stuff, man. I haven't.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
But no. So one thing I wanted to get into a little bit was, so as you know, got together with some of our colleagues or whatever, and one of our friends, I don't know if I don't like giving people's names, but basically, she's not from here originally, right? And so she was asking me how I felt about Black History Month, right? Like, what do you think about it? And it was at first it was kind of a tough question to answer because I don't think I've been asked it like quite like that. Because I kind of just, having Black History Month and living with it for so long, it's kind of just it's always been a thing. It's always been a part of my life, right?
Yep.
But then the question becomes like, is it necessary, right? And I had to pause for a minute, but it was like, as much as I don't think it should be necessary, but it is because it forces everyone here in the country where racism is pretty much like in the DNA of the culture. It forces them to take a look at somebody else's culture, right? And we've gotten to the point where not only is there a Black History Month, now there's the Asian History Month, there's a Hispanic, Latino History Month, there's a month for everybody pretty much. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'm at the point where I kind of think that there should be, right? Because without it, when are we going to think about those other cultures?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I've come to have an appreciation for Black History Month, and there's a every February I see this this little YouTube short come up or Instagram reel come up where it's like a white woman walking down the street or jogging down the street and she bumps into a black guy. He's like, out of my way, bitch, it's Black History Month.
Oh yeah. No, she's walking on the street. She's like, "Oh my god, I'm sweating." And the guy goes, "Move, bitch! It's Black History Month. Get out of here."
But I mean, it makes people of other cultures kind of like, if it's put in your face enough, then maybe you come to have a little bit more of an appreciation for somebody else's background. You know what I mean? So, and I respect all backgrounds. If it's Asian History Month, I mean, yeah, I'm happy to see something come up that maybe I didn't know about. For that group of people or for any group of people. So like I said, I wish it didn't have to be, but I am appreciative of it.
I think there's so many thoughts I wanted to add to that, but I think this goes into our next. This actually segues perfectly, so I'm actually going to go ahead and just play the video. I think you set it up pretty well.
All right.
Elba says he's not a black actor. He identifies as black, but says that creating a category of actors called black actors is actually fueling racism in Hollywood.
The star said, "I stopped describing myself as a black actor when I realized it put me in a box." Elba explained, as humans, we're obsessed with race, and that obsession can really hinder people's aspirations, hinder people's growth. Racism should be a topic for discussion, sure. Racism is very real. But from my perspective, it's only as powerful as you allow it to be.
Does he have a valid point saying that?
I mean, I get what he's saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
Do you call yourself like a black actor?
I'm an actor too, who happens to be black. So, I'm an actor first.
Some people like John Boyega took offense, saying that he would be denying his African American heritage, while others are showing support and pointing to this interview from Morgan Freeman to understand Elba's point of view.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man, and I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman. You understand what I know this white guy named Mike Wallace. You know what I'm saying?
Look, whatever you make of this, I think we all need to talk about blue actors. Ever since Avatar.
Okay, yeah.
Blue actors.
So the guy's a bit of a douche, but
no, I think he's brilliant. I saw that headline not too long ago. I agree with him like 100%.
So yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about that, and this is alludes to a little bit what you're saying too, with this as well. Also, Morgan Freeman's interview goes a little bit further. It doesn't show it here, but he talks about how we should need Black History Month because Black History should be celebrated more than just a month out of the year, right? Perfect sense, right? This kind of gives people the opportunity to virtue signal for a little bit and then go about their lives and not worry about it. For example, when George Floyd happened, virtue signaling, we're not going to say the word master anymore, and here's Juneteenth, and then we're going to give the police all the money in the world, and they're just going to keep doing what they're doing, and now more people have died since the George Floyd incident of police brutality, right? In terms of this, I see where they're coming from with this. I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't agree with it, and I'm gonna actually explain why in a second. I'm gonna play one more video. It's gonna be my last one of the very beautiful Nia Long. She says something a little bit serious. She says something a little bit along the lines of this as well.
see, I'm going to read it, that there was a headline, right?
Yeah.
Where you said, I quote, "Black movies and black famous only hold us back."
Yes.
You want to clear that shit up? Because
that's not written
you
correctly.
know how it goes. Because, they take one headline and turn it into something. So
read that again. Let me see that again. How much time we got? 'Cause
Terms
this
like
could-
black movies and black famous only hold us back.
Okay, so what I mean by, you know what I mean.
I know, but go ahead.
But so
For them.
For the white people in the audience. What I mean by that is if we continue to practice this idea of separatism, we continue to divide. And I will always and forever hold my fist up because I understand the experience. But I also believe that the more we understand about one another and the more accepting we are of one another, this thing called art should be representative of all of us.
Okay. Cool?
Yeah.
All right, so
Love Neil.
here's kind of why. Here's the part where I kind of disagree with him a little bit. So Idris Elba and what he said, right? Like we are hyper focused on racism. I would even take a step back and say we're hyper focused on labels, right? Everyone wants to be included. Everyone wants to find themselves as a label. The reason why I'm against the idea of or even Morgan Freeman's idea of saying, "Oh, we just not talk about it," right? Is that you're letting certain people off the hook, right? For not wanting to talk about it. There are certain people that don't want to talk about race at all and are perfectly fine with the way society is now, where black people are worth less, right? They don't have as much. We don't have as much generational wealth, right? We're incarcerated at higher rates, lack of generational wealth, lack of income, right? So if you wanted to say, "Oh, we just stopped talking about race," that doesn't solve the problem, right? We should be able to acknowledge, and these labels, black, they're only saying it from their perspective, as a black artist, right? But that label as black supersedes their art, right? I'm a black engineer, right, as well. And sometimes it's a struggle, depending on the environment, to get people to take you seriously, right? And us not just talking about it or just ignoring the fact that those labels exist, or saying, "Oh, let's not just call each other black or by their labels," right? I get the point. I wish that was a case that we can do that, but you're also letting people off the hook in the sense that, okay, here's a scenario: why aren't enough black people winning awards, right? Why aren't enough black people on these panels to win awards, right? Why aren't there any black people on some of these CEO on the board, right? By not talking about it, you're letting people off the hook, right? I think there's a group of people out there that would love not to talk about it, and it's perfectly fine with the way things are now, and I don't want to let them off the hook. You only talk.
Yeah, but I think that they were saying different things, though.
Well, I want to add too. It's like you fix a problem by addressing it constantly, as uncomfortable as it is, as frustrating as it is sometimes. Sometimes you don't always have the words for it too, right? Sometimes I'm not always in the mindset to try to address some problems, but you fix problems by trying to address it, right? And by talking about it openly. You just can't just ignore it, right? Being black is hard sometimes. And sometimes it's dangerous. Being black is hard, and sometimes it's dangerous for you, right? But it's a label that we have to carry to improve perception, right? Perception matters, right? And to the people that want to ignore the fact that race is an issue, to the people that just want to use race to virtue signal, right? It's important that we fight those battles on multiple fronts. So those are my thoughts on it. It's a little bit different from Morgan Freeman, Morgan Freeman and Idris Elba, though I respect them and love them to death, and I get where they're coming from. It makes sense. I can't agree.
Yeah, but what you're saying though, I mean, I people are gonna know if I'm an actor. People are gonna know if I'm black, whether or not, regardless of if I say I'm a black actor or not.
Mhm.
I think that's. I don't have to label myself that for people to know that I'm black, right? And so just because I say I want to be known as an actor, not just as a black actor, but as an actor, that's important because if when Neil Long was talking about like being black famous, even Dave Chappelle had a skit about that, right? Black famous
Yeah.
and just being famous. Oh no, was it Kevin Hart? I think Kevin Hart in his show with what was it, Real Husbands of Hollywood.
Hmm.
He was having a debate with Chris Rock, and Chris Rock was like, "I'm famous. You're black famous." And they had this whole thing where Chris Rock could just like go up in the store, try some shit on, and like walk out, whereas
Yeah.
Kevin Hart would have to pay for it or whatever, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, when you think of Black Hollywood, like you think of like Morris Chestnut, Neil Long. There was like a
Mhm.
certain group of actors that you always thought of, and unfortunately, they were always cast like in the same types of movies. Like it was only certain
Yep.
types of movies that they were cast in, right?
Mhm.
So it is a thing. Like I see Idris Elba's point. It makes sense. Like, hey, don't just shoebox me in. Don't just
Yeah.
put me in this box of like I'm a black actor, so I can only be in black films. No, I'm an
Yeah.
actor. I should be able to get any role, and I agree with him like 100%. I don't think it
Oh.
denies you of your heritage at all because you're more than your profession, right? And so you're more than respecting your heritage is about how you carry yourself. So even if I don't want you to just box me in as a black actor, I can still rep for the culture. I can still stand up and walk
Yeah.
the walk and do all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
for it, man.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. My only difference is that where I disagree is that if we were to stop today and say, yeah, don't call me a black actor anymore, you said it initially, right? It's still in the mind. You don't need the label for them to put you in a box, right? So I get what we're saying, but even if they got rid of the term black actor, I can totally imagine it's almost like saying, we're getting rid of the label. We're not going to call it master bedroom anymore. We're just going to call it the big
The
room or
primary,
something like
the
that, right? The
primary
primary bedroom, right? Sure, that doesn't change the fact that generational wealth has gotten away from black people, or when a black couple, you've seen this a lot, right? Get their house appraised, right? It's usually lower if a white couple got their house appraised. We've
Yeah.
seen this happen a number of times where a black couple will have to get rid of all of their paintings and put
Right.
like a
But the
white
person,
couple.
look, the person selling their house isn't saying black owned house, right? They're just saying they're
That's
selling
true,
their
but
house,
I get that. I know that. I know
right?
that. That's why I'm saying the label doesn't. You saying, "Oh, I'm not a black actor anymore." It only puts a word into what people are already perceiving. Is what I'm saying, right? We already see you as a black actor. They're already putting you in the type box, on the typecast in that box. If you got rid of the word black actor, right? They're still gonna put it to you. They're still gonna put you in a box, right? They'll
Sure.
still do it, right? Um, even if
I
you
mean,
don't stop the
I
voice,
think what they're talking about is kind
regardless.
of like it's wishful thinking too, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's if
it
for
is.
him to say
I mean,
that, I mean that's nice. Hope one day that you don't have to be identified as a black actor, but it's going to be like that for a while because we're still in that
but people
mindset
can have those
of he's
conversations.
black, he's white, he's Asian, he's this, he's that.
Yeah,
We label I mean, that's as people, that's what we tend to do. We tend to
yeah.
classify everything, right?
We classify, we tribalize.
Label, yeah.
Yeah. I don't I personally don't mind those labels so much if it doesn't hamper us, right?
But they
And I
do.
think
That's the whole point.
I think they hamper us regardless of the label. I honestly think they do. I don't think you need a label to say I'm a black engineer, right? I mean, I show up to work or show up on Zoom, they're gonna see me as a black engineer. That's the limiting factor, not the label of saying black, right? This kind of what Morgan Freeman says too. Kind of goes a little bit into what we talked about earlier about the N word, right? One of our friends, we were gonna have that conversation, we never did, where he thinks that it just gives people too much power and we should allow anyone to say it or whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's yeah. I can't.
I can't wait. I can't wait for that episode. I can't wait for that episode. We've
One
been
day we'll
talking
have
about that for a while.
one day we'll have that episode, but I think he kind of feels with what kind of Morgan Freeman and Idris Elba and Neil Long what they're trying to say as thespians, as actors and actresses in their field, right? That like Neil Long has definitely been typecast in her,
Of course.
in her role.
But she came up during the time of there's been different like phases of films, right? Like you had the Western, you're in the superhero phase. She came up during the rom-com time, like the 90s when she came out. There's a lot of romantic comedies came out. So she was in, and not that it was a romantic comedy, I still love the movie though. Yeah, she was in Love Jones. That's where I know her from the most. You know, Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Friday.
Somebody's love interest, huh? Friday. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's where she came up as. So, you know, you come up in, you know, in certain types of movies, but it's still not fair to have to only be able to do those types of movies, right?
Yeah.
Like it's difficult for us to break out of that box. You know, like you look at somebody like Denzel Washington, right? He's become like an icon. You know, Will Smith started off as Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but he's become an icon. Like it's very difficult for us to break out of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Are they still considered black actors now at this point, right?
I would argue not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he was doing, Denzel was in, Spike Lee joints and and now look at him.
Movies, yeah.
Yeah. Look at, I mean, so it's hard for them to break out. So I'm, like I said, I can understand what they're trying to get at. Unfortunately, as soon as they send in their headshot for a potential role, I mean, the label is put on them anyway, regardless of how they want to identify themselves.
And that's what they do. They I don't think they need the label to put you in the box. That's my argument.
That I would agree with.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't think they need the label to put you in a box. I think we need to teach people to overcome the label and to think past the label.
Oh,
right?
Man, we're so far away from that, it's not even funny.
Just because you're Asian doesn't necessarily mean you're good at math, right? That's a popular stereotype, right? Just because you're black doesn't necessarily mean you're great at basketball or can hold a rhythm, right? Another stereotype, right? So we need to be able to understand those stereotypes, the grand scheme of those things, and be able to think past it, right? I also think those labels, like it's harder for, let's say, someone who is black to kind of make it in some of these professions, right? I talked to this about my parents a while ago, right? Like they were really concerned about me, my younger brothers, and my sisters because they don't know anybody when they came to this country, right? And that we had to kind of go to school and kind of make it on our own. They didn't have, like, nepotism is a thing, right?
Absolutely.
And it's a thing everywhere. We didn't have that, right? We had to be a true meritocracy. Like we have to true like show our worth, and we had to do it while being black, right? Which is his own kind of layer of things to deal with. But yeah, no, those are my 2 cents on that. I don't know if you have any other 2 cents.
No, it was good. That was good, man. And the one thing I want to say before we wrap up is I would recommend take a look at The Woman King, the movie. I thought that was actually pretty good. It's on Netflix now.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
So,
I'll check it out.
I'm becoming a big Viola Davis fan for sure.
Yeah, she's great. Love Viola Davis. We got to talk DC next time, Viola Davis.
Amanda Waller series.
Amanda Waller series.
She's also playing Michael Jordan's mom in
Air Jordan or Nike or something. What was the name of the movie?
I forget something. It's the story of how Michael Jordan got his shoe deal or whatever.
I'm a little disappointed in that because it's like it's about Michael Jordan, but it's about white guys. So
I mean, the guy. I'm not mad at it because being like I said, I've been become a sneaker person a little bit. Oops. So, but there's a man named Sonny Vaccaro. I mean, he pretty much like kind of pioneered the giving these sneaker deals in the sneaker, a part of the sneaker industry. So I think Matt Damon is playing him. So I mean, it sounds like a pretty good premise for a movie, honestly.
Yeah, it's. I'm actually interested to see. It's called Air, right? I'm looking up right now.
It's okay. It's called Air.
It's called Air. Matt Damon, Ben Affleck is in it. I think Viola Davis is like Jordan's
Michael Jordan's mom. Yep.
Yeah, in it as well. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Coming out April 5th. So we may have to check it out. We may have to watch it, do a review. A full review. Okay, cool. Well, it's that time. Thank you guys so much for joining and watching. Much appreciated. I didn't even check the chat, so I don't think we really had a lot of chat stuff. But yeah, no, much appreciated, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah.
Peace.
Later.